Are you ready to take your business to the next level? Every day there are countless books and articles that are published offering the key on how to make your business a success. It's easy to feel overwhelmed trying to keep up and run your business. That's why Deb Creer created the Business Power Hour. Keep up on the latest trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. Let the Business Power Hour do the heavy work for you.
Good morning, good morning. I am Deb Creer, and I am passionate about giving professionals the tools that they need to make themselves and their businesses as successful as possible. And today we're definitely going to focus more on the making themselves successful as opposed to making your business successful. But let's be honest, if you're a small business owner and you're struggling with the issue that we're going to talk about today, doesn't matter. Your business is going to suffer. So this is about getting your personal house in order to be successful with your business. We're going to be talking about finances today. And wait, don't go away. I promise this is going to be fun. This is not, and finances, are a difficult subject to discuss. We don't want to talk about them. We want to ignore it, and we can't. And we especially can't right now. As we are recording this, we're right in the middle of lockdown, of not going out and about, of COVID-19, which is obviously a worldwide pandemic affecting everyone in some way or another. And unfortunately, it is affecting virtually everyone's finances for whatever reason, and maybe it's in a good way. Maybe you're like not spending money because you're not going out. But it's also a good time to be thinking about your finances. So please join me in welcoming Danny Kofke to our program today. Welcome, Danny.
Hey, good morning, Deb. Thanks for having me on.
Great. Well, let me tell people a little bit about you, and then we'll jump into this. And as I said, we promise we're going to make it fun and interesting. So as I said, these are trying times for all of us. No one has been unaffected by COVID-19. In addition to the way we live, our bank accounts have taken a hit too. Personal finance author and special education teacher Danny Kofke is here to give hope in these trying times. Danny's everyday approach to handling money has led him to be interviewed on numerous television shows, including Fox and Friends, the CBS Early Show, CNN's Newsroom, the 700 Club, and the Clark Howard Show. He has also been interviewed on over 600 radio stations and featured in a number of publications, including USA Today, Instructor Magazine, Yahoo.com, The Wall Street Journal, Money Magazine, and the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. He wants to show others that if this school teacher can do well financially, they can too. So again, Danny, welcome.
Oh, thank you, Deb, for having me on. Yeah, and hopefully we can, make this a little fun. I know finances, they can be such a tough topic in normal times, and we're definitely not in normal times right now. Just hopefully we can, just help people right now, because I know there's no one that has been unaffected by what's going on.
Right. And you specialize in working with teachers. And we're going to talk about your book in just a moment. And you are a teacher, as I mentioned in your bio. But as I was reading your book, what struck me was, of course, the information is good for everybody. And it doesn't even matter what your income level is. The subject matter is something that everybody needs to think about. We always think about teachers, though, as earning less. Let's be honest, that's not what should be happening. Teachers should be at the top of the food chain. Okay, I'll get off my soapbox now. Although I do admit, one of the one of the things that I have seen, and hopefully this is true, I've been seeing this a lot on Facebook, are people commenting that once school is back in session, once things are back to normal, after having homeschooled all of their kids, hopefully people will realize just how difficult teachers are and maybe think, we need to compensate them a little bit better. So hopefully that will happen, and because teachers are unappreciated and certainly underpaid, but what you have done is you have taken the situation of underpayment and turned it into a positive and become successful, become wealthy in your own mind, maybe is the way to put that. Successful in your own mind. That's the better way to do it. And and as I said, the tips in your book really do work for anybody. So hold your book up. Time to be Vanna. It's called The Wealthy Teacher, Lessons for Prospering on a School Teacher's Salary. And it is just one of several books that you've written. So I'm going to encourage folks to check that out. But let's go back just a little bit in time and tell us how it is that you discovered that this really is your passion in life.
Well, I knew I wanted to be a teacher after having Mr. Stutsky in ninth grade. He was my civics teacher, and most teachers have had that special teacher in their lives that encouraged them to get into the profession as well. So that was it for me. So I kind of was lucky that I knew, because I have a 10th grader right now, and she has no clue what she wants to be. So I was lucky. Hey, I kind of knew. So that kind of inspired me to do that. And then in my student teaching, I met my wife, Tracy, who is a teacher. So kind of knowing what we know about teacher salaries, I knew from the get-go that, we weren't going to make a lot of money. And it's hard to complain because we do okay. There's plenty of professions that make less than teachers. So, but I think most agree that we are on a moderate level income. So knowing that, we had to kind of plan from the get-go. And then ultimately, Tracy was able to stay at home for 8 years, raise our 2 daughters, Ava and Ella. And despite that, living on that time of my teacher salary, which I was making about $42,000 a year, so not a lot, we currently have no debt except our mortgage. We are on track to retire with a nest egg for retirement. We live a wealthy life on a moderate income. And that, to me, you mentioned it earlier, wealthy. What does that mean? It's so subjective. I mean, wealth means different things to different people. For some, it's driving the newest BMW. For me, it's being able to have the freedom to pursue those passions that I want to do and not really have to worry about the money aspect of it. And money's important. I'm not saying that. We all need money, of course, but I've discovered that money isn't the end all be all. And that, to me, I know people that have a lot more money than I do that make a huge salary, but they're miserable in life. And to me, there was a study done. It shows that 70% of Americans are unhappy at work. So I don't care how much you make. If you hate Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, you're not a wealthy person. So I think for me, and some people may disagree with me, and that's fine, but just for my life, I kind of do what is right for our family. And for me, especially right now, being a teacher, and Tracy's a teacher as well, that we get that time with our daughters. And then also I still get to make a difference. And I feel every day when I go to school that I am doing something, that I'm using God's gift that he's given me, one of the gifts, to teach the students. But then in addition, with writing books and being able to help people manage their money, I feel I've used some of my teaching skills to kind of teach in another way as well, and to help people manage their money better.
Right. Well, first, I am guessing that there are going to be several of your students that will say, you know what, because of Mr. Kofke, I'm going to be a teacher. And I say that because you clearly have a passion for it. And I'm assuming that your wife Tracy does also. And I think that's what draws us to people when we see that they've got that passion and we think, wow, I want to do that too. So, I'm guessing that you're being pretty inspirational for some of your kids. And so, that's great. And, I learned through your book that you did venture off into the corporate world several times. And sometimes it was because, your goals had said, you know what, we need to earn some more right now. But you came back to teaching because that truly is your passion. And I think that's maybe one of the first lessons that people, that we really want people to learn is it has to be your passion. You mentioned the fact if people are going to work 9 to 5 and absolutely hate it, it doesn't matter if they're making millions a year. Why? And they're going, well, but we'll retire. We'll be okay. Well, they might have died of a heart attack between now and then. I mean, all sorts of things. And I guess it's, why not be happy now? The putting it off is now, we're going to talk about setting goals and things like that. But, it is, why not do what your passion tells you to do? And if that means that you need to tighten your belt, really watch your budget, some things like that, well, that's okay. You can do it.
Sure. And I will say, it's important to be passionate about something. And I am about teaching, but every day is not rainbows and butterflies.
Right.
That there is in any job, that's the case. And yes, I did leave teaching a few times. The first time I left for money only, and I became a salesperson, and I hated it. So, that to me, and I made more money, but I realized, you know what, that money isn't everything.
Right.
I did leave a couple other times. One time was to do financial work, and I did enjoy that. That to me, it just didn't work out at that time. But I've realized too, so I do have a passion not only to teach, but I also have for personal finance. So for me, and this may help some of your the listeners as well, is, passion alone doesn't always pay the bills.
This is true.
And that's where you may need it if you find yourself passionate about maybe, I don't know, being in a rock band. Who knows? That may not pay a lot of money. So you do your day job to pay the bills, and then you do those things on the side. For me, I have written every single one of my books. Most of the time I write them at 4:00 in the morning before the day begins. I just plug away at them before my day job starts. And that's where, I think people need to realize too, that it is important to follow your passions, but that does not always pay the bills. And I think for so many people, it's like, oh, I need to be happy. Well, yes, it's important to be happy, but there's also, when you're an adult, you have responsibilities too. So sometimes you may we live in a gig economy. A lot of people do have side jobs. So if your passions alone aren't going to pay the bills, do it at night, do it in the morning, but just keep it going. And then who knows, like for me, I wrote my first book way back in 2005. I left teaching for a finance job in 2014. So that was 9 years from writing my first book, 9 years of getting up early, 9 years of doing free events, 9 years of doing radio shows, whatever it would be, until it turned into something full time. So I will say that never give up on your passions, but it may not happen right away.
Right. And as you said, your passion might be the side job. It might be, the rock band on weekends, or crafting, or, whatever it is. But for here, we need to be doing those passions.
Yes.
And I think that's where it is difficult, especially when times get tough. That our passions go by the wayside. Because we're being responsible, because we're earning money. We might take that second job, but it's a second job to make more money. It's not your second job as a passion. It's your, you're delivering food right now, or something like that. I mentioned at the start, as we are recording this, we're right in the middle of lockdown. We're not going anywhere. We're in our offices. You're not teaching. Anyhow, you're not teaching in the classroom. And, and so things are really difficult right now for many people, and different for many people, which I think is kind of fun, because I think there are some people who are right now thinking, what can I do different? What can I change? Yeah. And I think many people really are going, ooh, this working from home is not a bad deal. Right. Not driving in Atlanta, LA, Chicago, wherever traffic, that's not a bad thing.
No, you're right. And I read an interesting article the other day. Basically, for many of us, this is an opportunity to do a great big reset. It's kind of the first time in history, really, when we think about it. Maybe back in when they had the Spanish flu and things like that. But most of us are on shutdown right now, where we really have a chance to reprioritize what we want out of life. And once again, I'm not saying, we do have to be responsible. There are things that you have to do. But and my hope is that we come out of this stronger, and we just kind of think about, what truly is important. And, maybe I don't need to live in that big of a house or drive that fancy of a car if I'm happier doing something that may pay less, but I feel more content doing it. Right. So right now, yes, as we're doing this interview right now, times are tough. So you have to do, it's important to still dream and think about it. But yeah, we're at a place right now where it's just, we're earning money any way we can, because this is such a crazy time in society. But it will pass. I don't know when, you don't know when, but it will pass at some point. And then my hope is that we do come back a little bit stronger and then just more intentional in life.
Right. And right now we do have, I'm not going to say free time, but, we don't have the time that we're driving. That's going to give us a couple hours every day, right? But so as I was reading your book, that was one of the things I was thinking about, was people now have time that they could be doing some of the things. Now, I'm going to encourage folks, read books, read nice, fun, frivolous books, play with your kids. That's one of the things that I'm really hoping, is that coming out of this, people really realize how important their families are. And that's part of the reprioritization, is being able to spend more time with their families. And so hopefully that will come out of it. But, of course, one of the first things that I was thinking about when I was reading your book was the fact that so many people really don't even know their finances. They go from month to month. They never look, they never do anything. It's funny. I actually don't have any credit cards there. I was going to hold a credit card up as an example. But we live on credit, and we don't have budgets. And that's a big part of what you talk about in your book. And what I liked about it was it wasn't scary. It wasn't nasty. It wasn't ew. It was like, oh, okay, sit down and figure it out. What are the things that you absolutely have to do? And as part of that, it's also prioritizing. Do you need the fancy car? Do you need multiple cars? You talk about in your book how you actually went for a while with just one car. Actually, no cars when you lived overseas, but just one car. You and your wife figured out how to do that. Do we need all of these fancy things? And I think that is going to be something that a lot of people realize is, what? We don't need to be that fancy or have the best, and so hopefully that's a big thing that people are really going to think about now.
No, you're correct. And that's where a lot of people, to me, I know people are afraid of a budget. It's like the D word, a diet. They think it leads to restrictions. But for me, it lets us spend more freely because every dollar has a name and we know there's no guilt attached with it. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of people, they don't know where their money's going because they don't want to know. They're afraid to say,
they don't want to know how much money they spend on Starbucks every week, right?
Right. So to me, I just think for us, it's one of those things that we are able to prioritize what is truly important. Being teachers, we do have a set income, like most people. We have a set income coming in. So we need to make sure that goes as far as possible. So having a budget and just knowing where our money goes, it frees up for us. It frees up a lot of things. And then we know exactly, okay, we have this amount to spend every week on entertainment or on eating out or whatever it may be. And then we always are secure that we know we have enough money. And especially in times like this, I'm fortunate, Tracy and I are both teachers, so we are still getting a paycheck. But I mean, this just shows to me how we have so little control over many things in life. And I mean, this happened from a place that none of us really ever heard of. I mean,
and it was so fast. I mean, it was like, you're not going to work on Monday. Oh,
so there it is. Right. So we really have, in life, really, we have little control over most things. So to me, why not take control over those things that we can?
Right.
And then that way, in case things like this happen, we're taken care of. If, God forbid, Tracy and I weren't paid, we have enough money in a savings account that we're going to be okay for a year. We have that in place to where we're going to eat, we're going to have a roof over our heads. We have that. That helps me sleep better at night.
Right.
So for us, having the budget, keeping track of our expenses, that is where we're able to lay our heads down and we're okay. Right. So that's where I would, for a lot of people, unfortunately, I know they're going through tough times and having to go without a paycheck. But once again, I try to look at the bigger picture and I always try to be optimistic. And I hope that maybe there's a lesson in this for them that going forward, once we're through this, they're going to say, you know what, I'm going to be a better steward of my money and take more control over it. So this never happens again. Right.
And one of the things that I like is in your budget, you budget fun money, entertainment, whatever you want to call it. And I think that's something that people need to remember because we do need fun. Maybe it's just that you can only afford that you're going to go out to eat once a week. Okay. So you've budgeted $50. That's clearly not, you're going to go have steaks and things like that. But then it comes back to the experience. You're out with your family. You're having fun. Maybe you end up doing a picnic and going somewhere. I mean, all sorts of stuff. So that's the key with the budget is it's not all just, okay, we have to pay the bills. We have to do this, budget and budget for vacations. If you, and I mentioned goals a couple of times, we have to have goals. We always talk about in business, we have to have goals. Well, we have to have personal goals too. And maybe, you mentioned one of your things in your book was to go to Disneyland. Yeah. And so that was a goal and you saved for it, as opposed to people who get out their plastic and go. you guys saved for it. And the nice thing was, while you were there, you weren't stressed about thinking, how are we going to pay for it?
Right. I mean, vacations that are paid for in
Mhm.
advance are a lot
Mhm.
more enjoyable than ones that follow you
Right.
home. I mean,
Right.
that's the thing.
Mhm.
And what I will say too, with your budget, it will change over time. Life is
Mhm.
full of seasons. So when
Right.
Tracy was a stay-at-home mom and we were living
Mhm.
off 40 grand a year,
Mhm.
our date night consisted of a Subway sub and a
Mhm.
Redbox movie.
Right.
Our vacations
Mhm.
were we would go visit family. That was it.
Mhm.
Now we're both working. We
Mhm.
have more income coming in. So this fall, we went to New York City. My
Right.
girls are now 15 and 12. We
Mhm.
thought they would enjoy, but we saved
Mhm.
up in advance and
Mhm.
we had more income coming in. So we were
Right.
able to do that. So I will say that over time, I mean, now you may be struggling. And a lot of
Mhm.
people, maybe you're out of work and you're just living off that unemployment or the
Mhm.
stimulus check. Yes, it's tough right now,
Mhm.
but it's seasons. Life is full of
Mhm.
seasons. So
Right.
hopefully in the next season, you may have more
Mhm.
discretionary income and you're going to do more,
Mhm.
enjoyable things. But yes, to me, I've realized, I think because we lived on less for so long, that it really isn't about the money. It's
Mhm.
about the time together. And
Right. Mhm.
obviously having older daughters now, they do enjoy the things they did before aren't as enjoyable
Mhm.
anymore.
Right.
So, but the important part is that we're doing it
Mhm.
together and spending family time.
Mhm. Right. And of course, as they get older, they get more expensive. And I'm, their clothes are more expensive. The things that they do, if they're in sports, you might be having to pay for that. You might be having to buy a musical instrument, all these various things. So, that is definitely something that parents need to keep in mind.
Sure.
I'm always seeing people who are amazed at how much it cost for senior pictures, which, a lot of people just saved a heck of a lot of money. I mean, I feel really bad for our seniors that didn't get to go through things, but there's a lot of money that got saved.
You're right. You're right.
Now, it would have been better if they could have gone through graduation. Let's just be honest about that. But yeah, they didn't have proms. They didn't have all of those various things. But, you need to plan for those. I mean, we certainly can't plan for pandemics. So, maybe, the kids start saving now for prom next year. And the money that they had now, it's not, okay, let's take and spend it on something else. It's, okay, now we're going to turn it to prom next year.
Well, even like for us, and I've mentioned in my book, we have money set aside for those known upcoming non-monthly
Hmm.
expenses.
Hmm.
So back to school shopping,
Hmm.
that comes
Right.
every August, right?
Hmm.
So it's not a monthly bill,
Hmm.
but we prepare for that
Hmm.
every year. Like
Right.
Christmas, if we want $1,200 to spend at Christmas,
Hmm.
every month I put $100 in the
Hmm.
Christmas fund. Then it gets to be December, and we have
Right.
$1,200 to
Hmm.
spend at Christmas. So that's where I think, for a lot of people with that budget, that's where it helps so much, is
Hmm.
that not only on your normal daily, monthly
Hmm.
expenses, but those things that don't come out like once a year or every
Hmm.
6 months, car
Right.
insurance,
Hmm.
homeowners, those things you can just turn into a monthly
Hmm.
expense, and then it minimizes the
Hmm.
damage that your checkbook gets because
Right.
you're kind of doing it every single
Right.
month.
Yeah. You took your $50 and put it in the cookie jar, or, whatever.
Yes. I mean, that's the thing. And that's where I try to help people in my book. It's basic. I mean, personal
Hmm.
finance advice. I mean, there's different ways to go about it,
Hmm.
but basically it's spend less than you earn. I don't
Hmm.
care how,
Right.
right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
Yeah. If you
basically.
earn $10 and spend 12, well, you're in trouble.
Yes, and the principle holds true. If you earn
Hmm.
$1,000,000 but spend
Hmm.
2 million, you're
Hmm.
going to be broke. So it really
Right.
doesn't matter how
Hmm.
much you make. It's just
Hmm.
spend less than you earn.
Hmm.
So I think that's where we have to kind of get back to the basics for a
Hmm.
lot, is that we get away from that. And I
Hmm.
think so many people get caught up in these different numbers and the
Hmm.
semantics of it all. And it doesn't have to be that difficult.
Right.
Just go back to the
Hmm.
basics,
Hmm.
create a budget,
Hmm.
live within your means,
Hmm.
and you're going to be okay.
Right. One of the things you talk about is the fact that in your budget, you need to be figuring out truly what the priorities are. Is Starbucks every day a priority? Well, somebody might think it is, but let's be honest, it's not. You can do this. You mentioned K cups. It was so funny. I have a Keurig, and I actually did sit down at one point and go, I'm spending how much? And I was also thinking, okay, there's a big waste. There's those little plastic,
Yeah.
cups, and so, and so I have my little refillable guy that I buy my coffee, I put it in. I mean, and so, and we've mentioned, what type of car are you driving, all these various things. And one of the things you also mentioned in your book is the fact that we really need to not compare ourselves to others and not really be so concerned about what they're thinking. I grew up in the generation, I'm, before you, where we had to have Jordache jeans. Yeah, those were expensive. I mean, I still remember them being expensive. And so then, of course, you had knockoffs that, they spelled it slightly different and, all sorts of things. But, did it matter? No, you needed jeans. I lived where we needed Levi's because you needed the heavy denim. I mean, you needed work clothes.
Right.
And, and so think about that. Does it matter? Yes, you need to be clothed, all those various things. But does it have to be the fancy car that you get every year? Does it have to be the big house, the big apartment?
Well, and I think that's the beauty of creating that budget. For me, I have, so 2 daughters in 10th grade and 7th grade. So clothes are important to them. I don't understand it, but my wife does.
Right. She understands it and she tells you, yeah, honey, just, write the check.
So we have, the money set aside to do that. But I think here's the thing with a lot of people. You can't, most of us, I mean, I guess if you make a lot of money, you can, but we can't have it all.
Right.
So that's where if Starbucks is important to you every day, fine. But
you may not be able to adjust something else.
Yes. And I think that's where the budget is so freeing, is that you can prioritize. And like I said, having the daughters, the back to school clothes are important. So we adjust elsewhere. I don't buy Starbucks on my way to work. I make my own coffee at home. But if you think about it, I mean, Starbucks should really be called $5 because that's how much you spend every time.
Oh, at least. And that gets you the little guy.
I know. So, I mean, that's the thing where, to me, knowing where your money is going, it actually frees up a lot of things. And then you prioritize what is truly important. And then you have money to buy those things and you don't go into debt and you're paying the interest on the credit cards and then you're in it for a long time. So to me, yes, that's such a basic, is just to start your financial goals, is know where your money is going.
Yeah, it was funny as you were talking about this, I was thinking about a business associate of mine who drives a Mercedes. And she has a new Mercedes every 2 years. And I mean, I'm one of these people. I'm not a car person. I'm like, whatever. But she and I were talking about that one time because I'm thinking, oh my gosh, that's a big expense.
Right.
And she said, she said, there's several reasons for it. First of all, the people she works with expect her to drive a car like that because she's charging them quite a bit of money. Okay. It's kind of like, if your doctor, if you're, or your lawyer, you're paying them several $100s an hour. If they drive up in a car that's held together with coat hangers, you're thinking, I don't know.
Right.
But she said, she works with people who expect that she's going to drive that type of car. And more importantly, she drives them in it. If they were never going to see it, it wouldn't matter, but she drives them in it. But she said, here's the key. She said, I lease it. She said, because it's less expensive and I get a new car every 2 years. But she had run the numbers and she knew that the amount that she was driving, because of course leases depend on all that. I mean, she figured this all out and it was less expensive for her to lease. And it was not that big a difference between a regular car payment. And so she'd run the numbers. And so that's where it's, like you were saying, with your girls, you figure out, okay, they're going to need a different level. Right. And so just figure that out. And so if you're dealing with clients that are expecting something bigger, better, okay, then make adjustments elsewhere.
Sure. That's what it's about. Yes, exactly. And, no one size fits all, right? It's all about, once again, seasons of life, but also different professions. Like for me, being a school teacher, doesn't matter what kind of car I drive.
If you drove up in a Mercedes, people would go,
yes, it would be the complete opposite. Right. You're right. They'd be like, what is it? Exactly. So that's kind of where, yes, just you do what's right. And I think that's the whole thing with personal finance too. You do what's right for you and your family. You don't do what's right for your neighbor. You don't do what's right for your coworker. You do what's right for you and your family. And then, that won't get you into trouble if you're doing what you're, supposed to be doing, and the importance of what you need to be focusing on at that time.
Right. One of the things in your book that struck me, because then I went, oh, duh, is the difference between cash and credit.
Yeah.
Now we're going to talk about credit a little bit more, but of course, one of the things, and I've discovered this, if I'm putting out the green stuff, I spend less. And so it's really fun. And I don't know why I do that. When we go on vacation, I take cash. Okay. Burglars out there, don't pay attention.
Right.
And I don't know why I do that. I mean, I just started doing that. My mom always did that. She always took cash. And so maybe that's where it is. And so I'm taking cash. Now, yes, we obviously have the credit cards with us because that's how we pay for gas when we're traveling, in the hotels and all of those various things. But for kind of our fun things, for our meals, we're spending cash. And, and it is interesting that if you're walking up to, I think your example in the book was McDonald's.
Yeah.
If you're walking up to McDonald's, if you're putting it on your credit card, you'll buy almost twice as much than if you're paying cash.
Right. And I think it's interesting. I mean, you and I are kind of in the generation where cash, was king.
Mm-hmm.
The younger generation, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see.
Kids are given credit cards when they're in kindergarten.
Right. They're not used to cash. Actually, I did a workshop at my school, a financial workshop last month, and my art teacher, she's young, and I was talking about, balancing your checkbook, and she asked, what's the checkbook register?
Right.
Because so it'll be interesting. But yes, I do cite in my book, and this may be for the older generation that we're used to cash, but we'll spend 12 to 18% more when we use a card compared to cash. McDonald's did a study, and the average transaction was $4 when they use cash, $7.50 when you use any type of card.
Right.
And for me, for you, for a lot of people, swiping a piece of plastic through a machine or inserting it into a chip reader, it doesn't have the same emotional effect as parting with the green stuff. So once again, that will be interesting to see as we go on with the younger generation, if they have that same emotional attachment. But I know I do. And actually, even today, our spending money, what we use for our entertainment, I go to the ATM.
Right. You have an allowance, basically.
Yes. And that's what we spend for our entertainment. So when it's gone, it's gone.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, for many people, I think if you're trying to gain control of your finances, go to a cash only thing for a while. And just see, because it does. First off, if you pull out a set amount of money and you don't spend more than that, well, then you're never going to have to work, because that's your limit. You can't go over, so you're not going to use your credit card. But secondly, I think it does help curtail spending, because it kind of gives you pause. Do I really need that? Do I really want to buy that when you use cash instead of the card?
And of course, everybody in line behind you is like, and so you're okay, here.
They'll get that when we go out with friends. Sometimes they'll be like, "Oh, I need some change." Well, Danny's the only one that he always carries cash. So not all of them. They use the card. Yeah, it works.
Yeah. Well, and I like to tip in cash, because I figure, that way they're not having to share, or they might not. I mean, that's their business, what they're, whatever they're doing and whatever they're required. We had food delivered the other day, and of course, they're building that in right now. Well, this poor woman, the place we had the food delivered from was really, really slow. And it took almost an extra hour. I mean, I was not a happy camper. They got a negative review. But it was not her fault. And she had kept us posted. And so I tipped her an additional amount in cash, because that way she didn't have to report it. Because part of me thought, you know what? She stood there when she could, waiting for our order, when she could have been helping somebody else.
Right.
And I always tip extra if, say, I've had sat longer at a table. If they could have turned it a couple of, and so that's just kind of why I prefer cash, is that way those, the servers get cash.
Yes. And I mentioned it too, just having some cash on hand. Even now, I mean, I don't have cash buried in my backyard, but we do have some emergency, like in cash right now. Right. Just a few days, as we're having a few days ago, we had tornado warnings here. So I have cash if God forbid something were to happen and we had to get somewhere to use cash. Then we have some cash. So it's just important, I think, just to have some on hand as well, because you never know. Right.
Yeah, it's funny. My parents were children of the Depression. And they had cash. I mean, there were, and we went through this with my father-in-law also. They had cash squirreled away everywhere. And so you couldn't just, pick up, say, an old icky wallet and throw it away, because there might be money in there. Sure. And that was part of it. It was like, okay, and they had money in these, and you're thinking, why did they put money in here? But they did. I mean, that was just part of it. And that was because they couldn't get money out of banks.
Right.
There was a point in time where they could not get money. And so they literally, at that point is, they kept it under their mattress.
Right.
But, it is something that we all should have, a little bit, because what happens if even just, there's a big storm and the power goes down for a while?
Right.
Well, the ATMs don't work if they're not in electricity.
Well, we experienced that a few years ago. We were going to a cabin in Tennessee, and there was a winter storm coming, and we were ahead of it, but went to get gas, and the machine was frozen over from ice, so so we couldn't have used an ATM.
Right.
So we also keep some cash in the car, so we were able to have some cash. So I mean, once again, I'm not talking burying thousands of dollars in your backyard, but if you have a couple $100 just to kind of get you somewhere if you need to.
My dad called it his mad money.
Yeah.
And he would keep a couple, he's deceased now, so I can tell this, and there's no burglars going to go get him. He'd keep a couple $100 bills in his wallet. And that was his mad money. If he saw something, and of course, my parents could have bought anything they wanted. I mean, there was never, no, you can't afford it, but if it was something special that he wanted, he would spend his mad money.
There you go. Right. And that's what we talk about too, going back with the budget, to have a little discretionary, if you're able to have a little, and then it helps you kind of save for other things when you're kind of given the freedom. It's very similar to a diet. Like every week you're on, every day on a diet, maybe
you can cheat. You can have a cookie.
You have a cheat meal every now and again because it helps you stay motivated for the long term. And that's where we have to focus on with our money, because we're not, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. So we're not thinking just next week. We're looking at the bigger picture. So having a couple of the mad money in there, letting you kind of spend whatever, got to have a limit on it. You don't want to blow all your savings, but just setting yourself up with a little reward to help you keep going forward.
Right. And we've been talking about those lovely little plastic things called credit cards, and that is something that can get away from people so easily. Got away from me. I'll be honest. And, and it was one of those things where it was like, wait a minute, there's how much? And then it's not just you owe X, it's okay, what's all the interest that's going to be on there? All these various things. And so, but you have to have credit cards. I mean, like you can't get gas, without, for the most part, without putting a credit card in. You go to McDonald's, you can pay cash, but it is easier if you put a credit card in. There are some things where you just have to have a credit card for. Travel is a big thing. But what you need to do is be wise about it. Pay it off. Again, that should be part of your budget, that you're paying it off. Every time I do my accounting for the year for my accountant, when I look at the interest charges, I'm like, oh, I could have done X with that money. Yeah. It's not a lot, but it maybe it is just a little bit of Starbucks or something like that, but pay those off. But I liked your perspective on the cards that give you things, points, things like that. Because I know people who've done their entire vacations on points and things. So it's kind of a mixed bag about about cards that provide some type of incentive.
Sure. And you're right. You have to pay it off. And that's where, if you are struggling financially, I would encourage you not to use credit cards at all. I would say a debit card. A debit card in lieu of it, because that comes directly out of your bank account, and in essence, it acts like cash.
Yes. And it's that plastic that,
Right. So that to me is kind of the way to start. Now, because I'm a big fan of Dave Ramsey, and Dave Ramsey is kind of one of those that don't use any credit whatsoever. And, I realize he's speaking to 20 million people at a time. So that's probably, that is great advice, because most people don't pay it off.
Right.
For me and someone like you, and maybe, 20% of the population, maybe if you look at statistics, they have the money to pay it off. So I'm okay with having a credit card as long as you have money. Like for us, I use credit card for gas, things like that. Right. I know, though, in my savings account, I have plenty to pay it off every single month. I'm never going to carry a balance. I'm never going to pay interest on it. And then as a side benefit, you do earn some points. So I'm not a big person of shopping for points and trying this, because
I never remember I have them. I'm so bad about that.
No. And I've written in my book too, like I've never heard anyone say, gosh, my credit card points were the key to my success. No, it's, yes, you can get some and it can help you, but it's not like one of those things to try to build up. But so I will say, if you are responsible, you have the money, then yes, I'm okay with someone using credit cards to pay for things as long as they pay it off every month. I never want to balance going forward, because then you get hit with interest. Just,
Right.
if you have a 24% APR credit card, put $100 on it, you don't make a payment, just as an example, you don't make a payment all year. Well, 24% of $100 is $24. So then you're going to owe $124. And then it just keeps, that's just on
and it keeps building.
Right. So that to me, and credit card companies are great at saying all you owe is this minimum amount every month. But when you do the math, if you put $5,000 on a credit card and made the minimum monthly payment, by the time you're done with it, you'll have spent over $15,000 on that $5,000 purchase. So just know that. So just be responsible with it. If you choose to use credit, make sure that you're able to pay it off every month.
And I'll be honest, we have cards that have zero balances, and that is our emergency fund. I mean, if we absolutely had to, we could use those cards. They're like in a drawer locked away. I mean, it's absolutely had to is not, ooh, what do we got on Amazon today? I mean, absolutely had to is a catastrophe type of thing, and so we have those type of cards, but yeah, I mean, they're, and about once a year, one of them, we will get the letter that says you've never used it, therefore it's going away. And I think, oh, okay. And so that's fine, but it is very easy to use credit cards. And I think that's one of the things, we've been kind of laughing about the fact that kids don't know. Well, that's because parents are giving them a credit card and saying, now, use this only for an emergency. Well, and an emergency to a 16-year-old is very different than an emergency to somebody my age. It is a new pair of shoes. It is a pair of fancy jeans. So, as parents, we need to be teaching the kids, okay, yes, you do need this card in case of an emergency. I mean, you might have a flat tire. You might, there are true emergencies, but here's, and then teach them the how to be wise about it.
Definitely. And you can even, as simple as, when they get old enough, a good way is maybe like 10% you set away for giving, you save 25%, and then you spend the rest. That could be, if they carry that forward, then, when they get into adulthood, then they can save a little more for retirement or what have you. But just to kind of show them when you start off, once you earn your first paycheck, this is kind of, what you do with your money.
Right. And it is all about teaching them young. We have some friends who their kids are now out of school, all these various things. But when they were younger, they had budgets. I mean, these are little bitty kids and they had budgets, and a portion of it was tithed. And I mean, that was just something that was very important to them. And so those kids knew that 10%, whatever, went in the collection plate. Right. And that was that was clearly something that was very important for the parents. Could the parents have put that dollar in the collection plate for them? Sure. But it meant more to the kids to know, okay, well, I want to buy a new bike. And so I'm going to have to save this. And, oh, yeah, I got to remember this part here is going to go towards the church. Or maybe it goes to, whatever it is. But, yeah, teach them when they're young.
Yes, and we did that with our daughters when they were younger. We had the giveaway savings spending jars when they would get paid for doing the various chores. So I don't know. I just think, especially right now, it kind of shows. And I mean, we are going through tough times, but I think the greatness too of America is kind of showing with a lot of people that are giving. And I think when you're able to give, it just, to me, that there's always someone that has more than you, but there are many people that have less than you. And I think when you're able to give, it kind of helps. To me, it helps you financially. Like, I'm a teacher of special needs students. So my students all have IQs below or under 20, tube fed and wheelchairs, things. So like, it's really hard for me to complain about when I'm like, you know what, this kid can't even walk. These parents are not walking their daughter down the aisle to get married ever. I mean, like, so it puts everything into perspective. And I think that's the importance of giving, whether it's money, time, whatever you do. It helps you manage your money better, I feel, because it just kind of keeps everything into perspective.
Right. One of the things you mentioned were the stimulus checks. And it's fine. Not everybody's getting a stimulus check. It's everybody's like, oh, wait, no, there's lots of criteria. But anyhow, what I've also seen are people who are, well, I'm going to go get a new TV. That's not okay. And it's funny because part of it is to keep the economy going. I mean, it's stimulus. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the thing. And I've seen a lot of people saying, spend it on your local business. Don't spend it on Amazon, all of these various things. But if you can, save it. That's the key. And then I've also seen, a lot of things, and these are good, but where they're saying things like, we're going to defer your I still have student loans. Oi, that's a totally different subject.
Right.
I shouldn't have done it. Let's just go there. Shouldn't have done it. But it said, you can defer your next 3 payments. Okay. I won't, because we can afford to keep paying it. I mean, that's the thing. But for some people, I mean, it really does. That's something very important. But I think everybody needs to remember, you still owe that. It wasn't that they eliminated those 3. And I've seen people who have thought that, like car payments. That's one of the things is, they've been saying, okay, we're going to defer your first car payment for 3 months. You still owe that money.
Yes.
And so if you can pay these things, folks, keep paying them.
Right. Especially the mortgage. I just actually read something yesterday about, some of the mortgage programs are saying, you can stop now for 3 months, and then they're just going to tack 3 months on at the end. Whereas others are saying, well, you know what, when this passes, you're going to owe 3 months right now. Like you're going to have to.
Oh, yeah. It's now. Yeah.
So,
it's not, we're just adding on 3 months at the end.
Right.
Bill due.
Right. So you got to be really careful. And yes, if times are tough and you're out of a paycheck, yes, go ahead. If you need to add time on for this crazy season of life, yes, but you're correct. Just know it's not free money. They're not the mortgage companies. I mean,
they're
look
a
at
business.
they're big buildings, usually the biggest building in town. They're not going to say, oh, you don't owe us this money. No, you're going to pay for it.
Right.
It's going to be down the road. But yeah, just know that by putting a forbearance on it, you still owe the money over time.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been trying to figure out how it's working that insurance companies are giving refunds. And I understand. I mean, they're doing the refunds because there's not claims, because people aren't driving.
Sure.
But they're not just giving me money back. Somewhere there's got to be a hitch in there.
I don't know. I mean, maybe it's good for their business and I mean, it is.
It is good PR. I mean, I tell you what, that really is good PR for them.
But you're right. I mean, that's the thing. They still have their bills to pay. I mean, that's where we have to look at it, that going forward, I mean, it's none of this is free. Yes, I guess the stimulus money to a degree, I mean, we pay taxes. So I guess it's kind of coming, but yes, that's money that doesn't count on our income taxes that we'll be able to hopefully stimulate the economy somewhat with. But yeah, you had a great point. I mean, if you still are earning a paycheck, I think it is nice. And we're going to do some of it with our stimulus because we still keep the entertainment money, and we've been trying to support those local businesses and eat out. Not a lot, but we have upped it just like an extra night a week because we are blessed that we're able to still have an income coming in. So we're able to hopefully keep, help a business out. So I think if you're in that situation, yes, don't go overboard. Don't go buy the TV or whatever. But if you want to eat out every now and again a little more, support a local business, because this kind of shows that we truly are kind of in this together. And like the scariest thing for me, and I've been giving financial advice now for 15 years. And basically it just does show, and I talked about it earlier, but like how really little control we do have, because there are so many people out there that have followed my advice, that have followed Dave Ramsey's advice, have done the right things, and then they're in trouble right now. And they have, and it's not their fault at all. So it kind of shows, the bigger picture too, that we kind of are all in this together, that we really do depend on each other, and that while, it's important to control your personal finances, I also think at times like this, that if we can help out others, that's important as well.
Right. It's interesting. One of the things that I have been wondering about when we come out of this is shopping. Are people going to do more online shopping because they don't want to be with people? Or are they going to say, you know what? No, we've got to go to our local art festival or whatever, I mean, that really is. And I'm thinking about that. I'm like, I don't know. Now hello, I'm social. That's why this is so hard on me. I mean, this is all really hard on me. But I will go out. I mean, that is one of the hardest things for me, is to not be going out, to realize that this would have been First Friday art walk or, whatever, and to not be able to go. Would I have gone? I don't know. but I didn't have the chance to. I mean, and so I think that will be something. And I saw something today that Amazon is actually scaling back. They're not doing their suggestions, things like that. Well, that's because they've been overwhelmed. And as somebody rightfully pointed out, that's not going to stop Amazon, and they're just going to keep scaling up. I mean, this is going to be the thing, and there will be more online businesses. But I'm hoping that we do get back to having more of the local, more of the mom and pop. I've been annoyed when I go to order online food that the things that are within, a reasonable distance are all chains. We really don't have any mom and pop places or any of the mom and pop places that have been able to stay open that can deliver, and as much as I want a Big Mac, probably be better if I could do something from a local business. But it's like we said, it's really going to be interesting to see how this all shakes down.
It's going to change.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, we may not be going to the big malls anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It may be, like you said,
mm-hmm.
the local mama, which
Mm-hmm.
I think would be kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's, if we, like I said, hit a
Mm-hmm.
kind of a big reset and
Mm-hmm.
realize, okay, let's try to, we're all in this together, and let's
Right.
try to help out those that
Right.
kind of are the local
Mm-hmm.
business owners.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
And things definitely are cyclical. When I was growing up and then a lot into my 20s, shopping malls were the big thing.
Right.
And then they've kind of transitioned into an outdoor type of thing, which when I was in Colorado was very entertaining because half the time you couldn't go, it was freezing. And I'm thinking, I don't understand this concept, but, and malls are shutting down if they haven't completely shut down. I mean, there are very few true shopping malls anymore. And part of that has been online. I mean, when stores like Macy's are saying, we're doing more business online than in our stores. But, it really is going to be interesting. Are we going to go back to more and I'm hoping so. I think that'll be fun to be back to some of that. Here in Atlanta, probably not. I mean, because we want convenience, but in the smaller places in rural areas, hopefully they will.
Sure. And instead of having to drive to Atlanta, maybe, you'll stay local and you'll
Right.
get it and
Mm-hmm.
not deal with the traffic
Mm-hmm.
and all that. So
Right.
yeah, it will be interesting to see
Mm-hmm.
kind of going forward. But
Mm-hmm.
once again, I try to take the more optimistic
Mm-hmm.
route. And I just hope that, we are going through a rough
Mm-hmm.
patch, but that we will come out, with our priorities
Mm-hmm.
reset and then
Mm-hmm.
come out a little bit stronger and then, maybe support the businesses, but
Mm-hmm.
also then take care of our own personal financial situation as well,
Right.
knowing that this could happen again.
Mm-hmm.
I hope it doesn't, but
Mm-hmm.
there's no telling. Who knows?
Right.
So,
Oh yeah, things happen. I mean, hello, September 11th is not that long ago.
no. The housing crisis of 08, 09.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that really,
Right.
so things, another downturn is going to happen. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's just part of
Right.
history.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, hopefully this is a reminder
Mm-hmm.
of, okay, yes, we need to kind of better prepare ourselves financially because,
Mm-hmm.
before this hit, a lot of people were still living paycheck to paycheck. They, even after the economic
Mm-hmm.
collapse of 12 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people still then
A
kind
lot
of
of people never recovered. I mean, that's they got in deep enough that they've just been struggling the whole time.
Right. So, I don't know. Well, once again, we can sit and we can
Right.
say, oh, whoa. But to
Mm-hmm.
me, hopefully we'll just be stronger
Right.
going
Right.
forward.
And of course, one of the things that we really need to be thinking about as we go forward is that planning, that investing, and we're not investment people. We're not going to tell you what to invest in, all those legal disclaimers, but be thinking about it. And folks don't plan on Social Security, and even if it is around, have other investments, I'm going to give the short spiel of diversify, all those various things. But if you can, be investing, be investing in your kids' future right now. What is it? 529? Isn't that what they call a college?
Plan. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Be investing there. Figure those things out. You might have to be scaling back right now. You might have been sending more, but if you have an employer that has savings, oh my heavens, do the maximum you can do, or at least the maximum that they will match. And if it means you're cutting back a little bit, that's okay. I love the charts in your book. Now, I am not a numbers person, but what you did was you made it easy to understand, where it's like, okay, we take this basic number and after 20 years, here's what you've got. And you're
Right.
like, holy schmoly. You know? And so I think that's something people really need to look at.
Sure, power of compound interest. And I will say, I mean, in my book, I kind of list the steps to take. I call it the School of Financial Freedom. Since I'm a teacher, kind of listed what you need to do in each grade. And, I did encourage people after saving 1 month of expenses, that's when you start for retirement. I will say I've kind of adjusted that right now during this epidemic, that I do think, if your income has not been affected, then yes, keep going for retirement, keep investing. But if your income has been affected, I personally think we need as much of a cash cushion as possible until we're out of this, because we don't know how long we're going to be in this pandemic. We don't know how, no one knows. So
and as you said, there's going to be something else that comes along.
Right. So I do really feel strongly about building your savings account up to at least 6 months worth of living expenses to cover. And living, I'm not talking that, it's a Mercedes every year or a new TV. I'm talking if the basics, if, your housing, your utilities, those types of things that we need to survive on, we want at least 6 months covered. Then, because right now the stock market is on sale. I mean, stocks are down. So if you're looking for the future and stocks,
buy now.
you shouldn't want them in for another 5 years. So that's the magic number to think. You don't want it for tomorrow, because who knows what it's going to do. But when you look at the history of the stock market, it averages, depending on the SP 500 Dow, it's about 8 to 10% a year average growth. So when you're able to buy it when it's lower, you can look at history and assume that that's what it's going to continue to do. But I will say, yes, now if you don't have an emergency fund, beef that up. The stimulus check, whatever income, if you need to get another job, going to a grocery store, delivering food, whatever, those are industries that are hiring right now. Use that to build up the savings account until we kind of get out of this. And who knows what the new normal is going to be? No one even knows that. There's going to be industries that completely disappear. But until we kind of get back to seeing what society is going to be like, then I would encourage to keep that in a savings account, even though you're earning 0.001% interest. We're not worried about the interest. We just want it as a cash cushion for to have margin in life.
And you might, one of the things that somebody told me one time was make it hard to get to. So not just, another savings account in your bank where you can just be transferring money back and forth. And somebody gave me that same advice with a business account when I was years ago starting my business. They said, put your business account in a totally different bank. They said, because it is much more difficult for funds to get mixed up between them. And they said, not even just a separate account, so say you were with Wells Fargo, it wasn't open another Wells Fargo account, it was open an account in Chase or whatever. They said, make it more difficult. That's why it is difficult to draw money out of savings plans, things like that. They don't want you doing this, so or the people that, maybe there are people who invest in hard things like gold, silver. Those should go off in a savings deposit or what are those boxes? The box. Somewhere, and where again it's harder for you to get to.
Sure. Make yourself drive across town to the safe deposit box or whatever it may be. Yes, to spend it. And I will say, yes, you're correct. You don't want it easily. I wouldn't lock my money up in a CD where I'm going to pay a penalty if I need it.
Oh, yeah. You don't want to lose money.
Right. But you'd want it. Yes. See, even like your case in the business account, almost make yourself have to get in a car and drive to another branch, because then you're going to at least have a little pause and you're going to say, okay, I really need this.
Right.
And then you'll do it. But yeah, that's what I would just encourage right now is that, if you need that money, just focus on building up that cash cushion just for the time being. And then we can get back, hopefully in a month. I don't know. Nobody knows. It would be nice that, it starts opening up, the economy does again, and then you kind of can move forward with life and go back to the way we normally were. Maybe not normally, but, but just kind of have understanding that this is kind of what the future is going on.
And what I want to tell people right now is don't just, it is a depressing time in many ways, and so, don't completely shut yourself off. We've been doing a thing here in our community where every Saturday, everybody on this end of the cul-de-sac has been getting together Now we're social distancing, we're masking, but we're playing cornhole. We're doing, so we're seeing people. Costs us nothing, but we're going out and we're seeing people, and so I want to encourage people, especially if you're really feeling that, this is catastrophic. Take a walk, do something, get out and about. Doesn't have to cost you money, or maybe it costs you a little bit of money. Maybe you get Subway and you go for a picnic. Right. But get out there and don't just sit and stew, because as we sit and stew, it's going to make it worse. Because we will be thinking, oh my gosh, what if this continues for a year? What if?
You're right. And like we're doing right now on Zoom, we miss our friends. We actually have Zoom meetings a couple nights a week that we sit on our back porch. We all kind of Zoom and we just talk and do it, because yes, it is. But find ways to get food, because we may be in this for a longer haul than any of us want. So yes, find a way to kind of keep some sense of normalcy. Just in case, for us, we still get up and work out. We're not able to go to the gym anymore, but Tracy and I, we get up and we work out on the morning. Right. So, I mean, it just kind of at least has some sense of normalcy right now in these crazy times. Once again, kind of going back to control what you can control, because right now there's a lot that we can't, but those things that you can, do it.
Right. Oh my gosh. See, this is why I set a timer, because we could just be talking about this forever. And hopefully, as I said, we did make talking finances enjoyable for people. But Danny, tell people how they find you and connect with you online.
Sure. Yeah. You can go to my website. So it's www.wealthyteacher.weebly.com. So wealthyteacher.weebly, Weebly.com. If you just Google search my name, Danny Kofke, it comes up. So DANNYKOFKE. And you can see all the different things that I've done. And hopefully, just
perfect. Well, hold your book up again.
So
it is called The Wealthy Teacher: Lessons for Prospering on a School Teacher's Salary. And as I said, it is good information for anybody. It's not just people who are on a teacher's salary, but it's good for anybody. Folks, when we're back in school, when kids remember teachers, I think one of the funniest things I have seen are the memes that say, next year, teachers are going to have to deal with kids saying, but that's not how my mom taught me.
That's right.
Right. So, Danny, are there any final thoughts that you have for everybody?
Yeah, I mean, I just kind of want to give people hope, and especially in these times, and to show others, if I can do it, a school teacher, a family of school teachers can do well financially. You can too. And it's going to take discipline. It's going to take some patience, but you can do it. And that's where I just don't want people to lose hope. And especially after, the COVID-19 pandemic passes, just wherever you are in your financial life, kind of get back on it, get, to plan for your future, and just don't lose that hope. And then just take encouragement from me that if this school teacher can do it, you can do it too.
I love it. Well, I'm Deb Creer. I've been having a wonderful time talking with Danny Kofke. And until next time, everyone have a great day.
Tune in for our next program for even more trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. The Business Power Hour, hosted by Deb Creer, is proud to be part of the C-Suite Network.